Excuse me, but I think you're missing something. The laughter echoed through the room, ricocheting off the polished glass walls of the boardroom. Maya Williams, standing at the back of the room, felt all eyes on her. The group of CEOs and powerful executives, all dressed in tailored suits and carrying the weight of millions on their shoulders, barely acknowledged her presence when she walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there. A woman of color, a janitor, cleaning the high-rise offices. But today, she wasn't just the invisible cleaner. Today, she was about to change everything. Maya took a step forward, the tension in the room thickening. She had read the documents earlier while cleaning up a mess in the corner of the office. It was just a glance at first, curiosity. But then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. A clause buried deep in the fine print of a merger agreement. A clause that could cost these men everything. She could feel their eyes on her, dismissing her. Who was she to interrupt their multi-million-dollar deal? I'm sorry, what are you talking about? One of the executives scoffed, his voice dripping with condescension. I don't think you understand the complexity of this deal, another chimed in. Maya didn't flinch. She wasn't intimidated. Not by them, not by their wealth, not by their power. Her voice was calm, steady as she walked toward the conference table, pulling up a chair. On page 14, Maya began, her eyes meeting theirs one by one. There's a liability clause that shifts all responsibility to Hale Investments in the event of any legal or financial fallout from the merger. The room fell quiet. The executives exchanged confused glances, some chuckling under their breath. So, that's the way these things work, one man said, dismissing her words. Maya's heart raced, but she didn't back down. It's not a protection clause, she continued, her voice firm. It's an override clause. You sign it, and you're setting up your company to fail. If anything goes wrong after this deal, it'll be your name on every lawsuit that follows. The room went dead silent. She could feel the heat of their stares, the disbelief. What did you say? The CEO of the company, Jackson Hale, asked, his voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. He leaned forward, looking at her with a mix of irritation and curiosity. I said, "You're about to make a huge mistake," Maya replied, her gaze unwavering. "You don't understand what you're signing. It's a trap." For a moment, no one moved. The silence in the room was deafening. Maya could hear her own breath, steady, controlled. The weight of the moment hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Then, slowly, Jackson Hale's eyes shifted from her to the document in front of him. He flipped it open, scanning the page. His eyes widened, and his jaw clenched. He leaned back in his chair, stunned. The room had been laughing at her just moments ago. Now, they were all staring at her, unsure of what to say. She had been right. Maya had just stopped an entire board from making a catastrophic decision. The power in the room had shifted. Maya had found a crack in their world of control and had used it to break through. And the real question now was, how would they react to the fact that a janitor had just saved them from themselves? The room was still, the tension unbearable. Maya stood there, facing a group of the most powerful men in the city. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced. Jackson Hale, the CEO, was still holding the contract, his eyes scanning the clause she had pointed out. His fingers trembled slightly as he set the paper down, his face pale. Maya could feel the weight of his gaze, the disbelief and the dawning realization in his eyes. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and thick. Then Jackson cleared his throat, his voice hoarse. I didn't see this," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. He looked around the room, his eyes flicking from one executive to another, searching for someone to back him up, but no one did. They were all too stunned. "How could we miss this?" he asked, more to the group than anyone else. Maya remained calm, her gaze unwavering. "It's easy to miss something when you're too focused on the bigger picture," she said softly. "But sometimes, the devil is in the details." Jackson looked at her, his mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right words. "You're not just a janitor, are you?" His words were cautious, almost apologetic. "No, Mr. Hale, I'm not," Maya replied, her voice steady, unshaken by his sudden shift in tone. The CEO took a deep breath and turned to the others. "This is a disaster," he said, his voice finally cracking with the weight of the situation. "This could ruin us. We need to figure this out now." The room erupted into chaos. The executives scrambled to recheck the documents, to rework the numbers, their confidence shaken. They had been so sure of their success, so certain that this deal was going to be the crowning achievement of their careers. But now, it was crumbling before their eyes. And in the middle of it all, Maya stood silently, her presence undeniable. She had come into that room unnoticed, her voice drowned out by laughter and derision. But now, she was the one who had saved them all from making a catastrophic mistake. The power in the room had shifted. She had forced them to see the truth, a truth they had been too blind to recognize. Slowly, Jackson Hale walked over to Maya, his steps measured, almost hesitant. He stopped in front of her, looking down at her with a mixture of awe and respect. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Maya simply looked at him, her face calm and unreadable. You don't have to say anything, she replied. Just do better. For all of us. Jackson nodded slowly, his eyes meeting hers. I will. Thank you, Maya. You've done more for this company today than anyone else. Maya didn't smile. She didn't need to. She had already done what she came to do. As the executives continued their frantic work, Maya turned and walked out of the room, her steps quiet but confident. She knew that her place in this world was not defined by what others thought of her, but by what she could achieve on her own terms. And today, she had proven that she was more than just the help. Maya stepped into the quiet hall, her footsteps echoing softly against the marble floors. The boardroom doors closed behind her with a soft click, but the weight of the moment still lingered in the air. Her mind raced, replaying the events over and over. She had walked into that room a janitor, a nobody, and left it having stopped a multi-million-dollar deal from collapsing. She could feel the lingering stares of the executives, even though she was no longer in the room. Their silence spoke volumes, more than any apology or praise could. Maya paused in front of the elevator, her fingers brushing against the cold metal doors. It had happened so fast. One moment she was just doing her job, cleaning up a mess, and the next she was pointing out the fatal flaw that no one else had seen. She had done it. She had shown them all that being invisible didn't mean she had nothing to offer. As the elevator descended, Maya's thoughts turned inward. She had always kept her head down, tried to blend in, hoping no one would notice her. She knew her place, knew how the world saw her. A woman of color, a janitor, someone to be overlooked. But today, for the first time, that had all changed. She had demanded attention, not with her appearance, but with her knowledge, with her voice. As the elevator doors opened, Maya stepped out into the lobby, the soft hum of the city outside filling her ears. She paused for a moment, taking in the sounds of the world she so often tried to ignore. The hum of cars, the chatter of pedestrians, the distant blare of a horn. It all seemed so distant now, as if the world outside the building had no idea what had just transpired within. She had stepped into the lion's den and come out unscathed, but she couldn't help but feel a twinge of doubt. Would they remember her tomorrow? Would they see her for who she truly was? Or would they go back to their comfortable lives, forgetting that a janitor had saved them from making a costly mistake? Maya knew the answer. They would forget her. They would move on, just as they always had. But she didn't need their validation. She didn't need them to see her as anything more than what she was. She knew who she was. She was Maya Williams, and today, she had made them listen. She had done what no one thought she could do, and that was enough. As Maya walked through the lobby, her steps felt lighter, her shoulders straighter. She had done something today that she never thought possible. She had changed the course of their future. And maybe, just maybe, she had changed her own as well. Maya woke up to the soft light streaming through the window. She had barely slept the night before, her mind replaying the events of the day over and over. But now, as she lay in her bed, she felt a sense of calm that she hadn't felt in years. She had done it. She had stood up for herself, for what was right. And somehow, against all odds, she had been heard. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, pulling her from her thoughts. She reached for it, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. But as she glanced at the screen, her heart skipped a beat. It was an email from Jackson Hale. Maya hesitated for a moment, then opened it. Maya, I want to personally thank you for what you did yesterday. You saved the company from a huge mistake, and I don't think we can ever repay you for that. I would like to offer you a permanent position in our legal department. Please let me know if you're interested. Jackson Hale, CEO. Maya's eyes widened. She read the message again, just to make sure she hadn't misinterpreted it. A permanent position? In the legal department? The thought seemed unreal. She had only been a janitor, someone who cleaned up after people, someone who was invisible. But now, suddenly, she was being offered a chance to join the very people who had laughed at her the day before. It felt like a dream. She put the phone down and sat up in bed, taking a deep breath. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the opportunity she had always dreamed of but never thought possible. The chance to prove herself, to show the world what she was truly capable of. Maya had always known that she was more than just the job she held. She had always known that there was something inside of her that was worth more than the label people put on her. But until yesterday, no one had ever seen it. Now, she had the chance to prove it. The thought made her nervous. She wasn't sure what to do. She had never imagined herself as someone who would belong in that world, the world of billionaires and executives. But now, that world was offering her a seat at the table. Maya picked up her phone again, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She thought about what to say, her mind racing. Finally, she typed a response. Mr. Hale, thank you for your offer. I'm grateful for the opportunity and would be honored to join your team. Please let me know the next steps. She hit send and set the phone down, feeling a wave of emotions wash over her. She had made a decision, one that would change the course of her life. But as she sat there, in the quiet of her apartment, she knew this was just the beginning. The world had underestimated her for far too long. Now, she was ready to show them who she really was. Maya sat in the small cafe, the soft hum of conversations around her barely reaching her ears. Her phone had buzzed a few more times since she sent her response to Jackson Hale's email. She had agreed to the offer. It felt surreal to her, still like something out of a dream. The same woman who used to clean the boardrooms was now about to step into one. She had spent her entire life believing that people like her were never meant to belong in the places that mattered. But something had shifted in her. That moment when she spoke up in that meeting, the moment they all realized she was more than just a janitor, something had unlocked within her. The phone buzzed again, breaking her thoughts. She looked at the screen. It was a message from Jackson. Maya, we're excited to have you join the team. Please meet with me tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the next steps. I'll have HR send over the details. Maya stared at the message for a moment, her fingers lightly tapping the table. It was happening. She was stepping into a new world, one that she never thought she would be allowed to enter. She had always been the one watching from the outside, the one overlooked. Now, she was going to be part of the very system that had once dismissed her. The thought both excited and terrified her. What would it be like? Would she fit in? Would they accept her? She had no idea, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let fear hold her back. As the sun began to set outside, Maya took a deep breath and stood up, ready to face whatever the next day would bring. The world around her hadn't changed. People were still going about their lives, rushing to their destinations, completely unaware of the quiet transformation that was happening within her. But Maya was different now. She was no longer the invisible woman who cleaned up after others. She was stepping into her own power. The next day, Maya arrived at the office early, as usual. She had spent the entire evening the night before going over her notes and preparing for the meeting. When she stepped into the elevator, she felt the familiar nervousness bubble up inside her, but she quickly pushed it aside. This was her moment. She wasn't going to let it slip away. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped out onto the top floor. She walked toward Jackson's office with purpose, her steps steady. She could feel her heart beating in her chest, but she took a deep breath and walked in. Jackson stood up as she entered, his expression warm and welcoming. "Maya, I'm glad you could make it. Please, have a seat," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. She sat down, her posture straight but relaxed. The nerves were still there, but she was in control. Jackson smiled at her, his tone more personal now. "I have to admit, I didn't expect you to be the one to save us that day. You've really impressed me." Maya smiled back, but she didn't let herself get too comfortable. She had learned not to get too attached to praise. "I just did what needed to be done," she replied, her voice steady. "Sometimes, people don't see the small details. But I do." Jackson nodded, clearly impressed. "That's exactly why we need you on the team. Your insight, your ability to see what others miss. Those are the qualities we need in this company. You're not just here to clean. You're here to change things." Maya's heart swelled with a mix of pride and disbelief. This was real. She wasn't dreaming. She was here to make a difference. "Thank you," she said quietly, but the words didn't feel heavy or out of place. They felt earned. She was ready for this. Whatever the future held, she was prepared to face it head on. The days of being overlooked were over. Maya Williams had found her place, and she was determined to make the most of it. Maya walked into the office the next morning with a sense of quiet confidence. She had been working at the company for 2 weeks now, and the adjustments were still new, still overwhelming at times, but she was learning. Every day, she faced a new challenge, whether it was learning the complex legal jargon or navigating the unspoken dynamics between the staff. But she was determined. Her eyes were set on her goal, and nothing was going to stop her. Today, Jackson Hale had called her into his office again. When she stepped inside, he was standing by the window, looking out at the city skyline. He turned as she entered, his face serious. "Maya, I need your help with something," he said, his voice low. Maya nodded, walking over to the desk, where a stack of documents Saturday, "Of course, Mr. Hale. What do you need?" Jackson leaned against the desk, rubbing his chin. "We're in the middle of a major deal with a new client, and there's a clause in their contract that I think we're overlooking. I need someone to go through it and tell me if we're missing something." Maya took a deep breath. This was it. She was being trusted with something important. Jackson had asked for her, not because of her title, not because of her position in the company, but because of her ability to see things others couldn't. She picked up the stack of papers, her fingers skimming over the pages, absorbing the complex legal language. As she read through the terms, her mind worked quickly. The words were starting to make sense. Patterns began to emerge. She could see the hidden clauses, the ones that no one had caught before. The mistakes, the risk. She set the papers down on the desk and looked up at Jackson. "There's a clause here," she said, pointing to a specific paragraph, "that could lead to us losing a significant amount of money if the deal falls through. It's a risk we don't need to take." Jackson's eyes widened as he leaned in to examine the page. His jaw clenched as he read the words. "You're right," he said, his voice tight. "I didn't see it." Maya could see the frustration in his expression. She had become a trusted voice, and she hadn't even been there a month. The realization that she was already making a real impact hit her, but she didn't let herself get caught up in it. This was her job now, her responsibility. "I'll make sure this gets addressed," Jackson said, finally looking up from the papers. "Thanks, Maya. You're doing incredible work." Maya nodded. Feeling a surge of pride, she quickly pushed down. She wasn't here for praise. She wasn't here to be thanked. She was here to prove herself, to show that she could do more than just clean up messes. As she left Jackson's office, her thoughts raced. She had just found another flaw, another mistake others had missed, but it wasn't just about fixing problems. It was about being seen. Maya had spent years in the background, overlooked and dismissed. But now, in this company, in this space, she was standing in the light. And no one was going to be able to ignore her anymore. Maya sat in her small apartment, the quiet of the evening surrounding her as she reflected on the past few weeks. She had started this journey as a janitor, someone invisible in the eyes of the powerful people around her. Now, she was working in a corporate world that, just months ago, would have seemed unimaginable. She had come a long way. She wasn't sure what had changed in her, but something had. Every day at the office, she had grown more confident, more sure of herself. She was no longer just doing the work expected of her. She was finding ways to contribute, ways to stand out. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was an email from Jackson Hale. "Maya, I need you to come to a meeting tomorrow. There's something I want to discuss. Please be here at 9 a.m. sharp." Her heart raced as she read the message. Another meeting? With Jackson? She had no idea what it was about, but she had learned not to question opportunities like this. She quickly set the phone down and began preparing for the next day. She had learned that being ready was half the battle. The next morning, Maya arrived at the office earlier than usual, her mind buzzing with possibilities. As she walked toward Jackson's office, she felt a wave of nervous excitement wash over her. What was this about? Was this another task or something more? When she entered Jackson's office, he was standing by the window, looking out at the city below. He turned when he heard her steps, his face serious but not unfriendly. "Maya, come in. Have a seat," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. She sat down, her eyes meeting his. Jackson didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I've been thinking about how you've handled yourself around here. You've exceeded expectations, and I think it's time to give you a bigger role. Something more permanent." Maya's breath caught in her throat. Was he serious? She had worked hard, but she never expected this. Jackson smiled slightly at her stunned expression. I've already spoken to HR. They're preparing the paperwork for your promotion. I want you to take on more responsibility, oversee legal contracts, help with strategy meetings, that sort of thing. You've shown that you can handle it, and I believe you deserve this. Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had come so far, so quickly. But this was more than she had ever imagined. You've earned this, Maya, Jackson continued, his voice sincere. I've seen the way you think, the way you spot things that others miss. I want you to know, I'm not just giving you this position out of kindness. You've earned it with your skills and your intelligence. Maya swallowed hard, her heart pounding. This was everything she had worked for, but somehow it still felt surreal. Thank you, Mr. Hale, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I won't let you down. Jackson nodded. I know you won't. You've already proven that. Now, it's time to take your place at the table. As Maya left his office, the weight of the moment settled in. She was no longer the invisible woman who cleaned up after others. She was now a part of the team, a part of the decision-making process. And as she walked through the hallways of the office building, she felt a sense of pride in herself that she had never felt before. She had earned her place. She had worked for it. And now, nothing would hold her back. Maya sat at her desk, the soft hum of the office around her, but her focus was sharp. It had been a few weeks since her promotion, and every day she felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. The tasks were more complex now. Contract negotiations, sitting in on high-level meetings, making decisions that could impact the company's future. At first, she had doubted herself. She was still adjusting to the role, still learning the nuances of corporate life. But slowly, with each challenge, she began to gain confidence. Her eyes now saw the world differently, her perspective clearer. She wasn't just the woman cleaning the floors anymore. She was a part of something bigger. The phone on her desk buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was an email from Jackson Hale. Maya, I need you in a meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. We're discussing some upcoming projects, and I'd like you to lead the discussion on the legal side. Be prepared. Maya's heart raced, but she quickly pushed the nerves aside. Lead the discussion? She had been in meetings before, but this was different. This was her moment to shine. She quickly began preparing, reviewing contracts, memorizing key points, and organizing her thoughts. She knew she had to prove herself again. The next morning, she walked into the conference room with purpose. The usual group of executives was there, but this time, it felt different. They weren't just looking at her as the janitor-turned-employee. No, this time, they were waiting for her to take charge. She stood at the front of the room, cleared her throat, and began to speak. At first, her voice was soft, but with each passing moment, it grew stronger. She explained the details of the project, laid out the risks, and highlighted key legal considerations. The room was silent as they listened to her, absorbing every word she said. It felt surreal to her, but she didn't let herself be distracted. She had worked too hard to get here. By the time she finished, the room was still. No one spoke immediately. Jackson was the first to break the silence. Maya, that was excellent, he said, his tone filled with respect. You handled that better than anyone I could have imagined. Maya felt a smile tug at the corner of her mouth, but she didn't let herself bask in it for too long. This wasn't the time to get comfortable. She had more to do. But in that moment, as she glanced around the room, she knew that things had changed. She wasn't just a participant anymore. She was a leader. And for the first time in her life, she realized that she had earned this place, and no one could take it away from her. Maya sat in her new office, the view from the window offering a stunning glimpse of the city below. The past few months had been a whirlwind. From the moment she had stepped into that boardroom, unsure of herself, to this moment, sitting behind her own desk as a trusted member of the team, it felt surreal. She had earned her place. And now, it was time to move forward. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Jackson Hale. Maya, we have a new project coming up. I'd like you to be the lead on the legal side. Let's meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. to discuss the details. I believe you're the right person for the job. She stared at the screen, the message sinking in. Led? She had worked hard to prove herself, but this was different. This was her taking full control of a project that could shape the company's future. A part of her felt the nerves creeping in, but she quickly shook them off. She had done the impossible before. There was no reason she couldn't do it again. The next morning, Maya walked into the meeting room with purpose. Jackson, along with a few other key executives, was already there, waiting for her. She could feel their eyes on her as she walked to the front, but instead of feeling intimidated, she felt empowered. This was her time. Jackson looked at her with a smile as she began to lay out her ideas, the confidence in her voice growing with each word. She was no longer the woman trying to prove herself. She was the expert in the room, the one with the answers. As the meeting went on,